Hey guys, you're watching Gansky, the place to be to develop your creative skills, and in this video I'm going to jump into one of my composites that I've created in Photoshop, and I'm going to do like a little bit of a breakdown analysis and just show you how I've created something like this if you're interested. Now, these take me hours to create. If you're not familiar with what a composite is, it's combining multiple images into a single image, and like photo art, for example. I love it, it's a lot of fun to do. You can do it in Photoshop, and this is kind of going to be a breakdown of how I construct mine. So hopefully this is helpful. Some people have asked for tutorials, a 12-hour tutorial, probably not that realistic, but I'm going to at least dissect and show you my layers, my groups, and kind of help you understand how I've created this. So I would love some feedback on this format. If this is helpful or not, please do let me know. But anyway, we're going to jump to the screen and I'm going to show you one of my favorite composites. So you can see I've opened this up. This is a Cyberpunk 2077 inspired composite. I made this in Photoshop. It took like over 12 hours. It took a long time. Far too long for a tutorial, I think. But hopefully this breakdown is gonna help explain exactly how I made it. So if I just switch all the layers off, we'll peel this back. There we go. We've got absolutely nothing. We can turn on the scene and this is how it looks. So you can see everything is named, or at least it should be. So we'll go back, turn all this off. And if I double click on the smart object, we can go inside this. Smart objects are really useful in composites because if you had every single layer just visible, it would be overwhelmingly mind-blowing. So you can kind of compact loads of layers inside a smart object. So you can go into it, you've got loads of layers, and then you can save it and come out of it, and then you've just got that smart object only taking up one spot in your layers panel. So incredibly useful. And okay, so we've got some effects here. So if I expand this out, you can see there's a few things. We've got some smoke, things that I never actually ended up using. We've got the box, crate, we've got a bench. I didn't use that in the end. So if I go and dissect this and just switch a bunch of layers off, you can actually go back to the original image, and it's just a really nice image, a dark street. We've got some smoke and things. In fact, I can double click this to go inside. There we go. That is the original image that I'm working with. So another smart object, and they just applied a few different lighting effects and things. We've got some people fighting in the background there, shadows, a bit of color, and you can see if I turn these on, actually no, those were off. There we go, we've got a bit of color there with some post effects as well. I'll just show you this folder by highlighting it in red. So, what have we got? Stars. Again, another smart object. So literally just some stars. And if I come out of that, it's just stars with a Gaussian blur effect applied. File, blur, Gaussian blur. So I just kind of really use this nice sort of cosmic image just to add some blues and pinks and just blur them because that fits the whole kind of theme that I'm going for. So I'll come out of this now. We won't save any changes because I'll probably break the entire thing. But that's like a very, very rough start. So what I normally do is I compile my scene. So I'll get the people fighting in the background here, different lighting effects, all this kind of stuff. I sort of compile it all together and start to build my scene. That's just to kind of see how it works and develops without actually committing to, yep, this is the right idea, because I could start adding characters in and building the scene and actually it doesn't work. So if you do all the like heavy retouching up front, you might find it doesn't actually work as a composition at the end. So do it very roughly, very crudely. It won't look great, but just construct your scene and just make sure you're happy with that core scene before you kind of spend hours upon hours retouching. That's my advice anyway. So you can see here, we've got drones. Added a little drone there that was cut out, I think, using the pen tool or the selection tool. And if I expand this down, you can see we've got a bit of motion blur on there and a bit of Gaussian blur, so the drone is in motion. We've got the propeller blades from the drone there as well. We've got, I think, another drone somewhere. There we go, we've got another little drone in the background. Turn that on and off. We've got some cinders coming through. Now this is really, really cool. So with any like effects like snow or rain or fire, any particle effects that are on a black background, what you can do is it looks something like this. You can see I've of course desaturated and taken the color out. But if you change the blending mode from lighten to lighten or screen. Usually screen I find works better, it preserves more detail. It just removes the black and the really dark colors and just leaves the effect. So if you've got fire or snow or rain or anything like that, is a really easy way to add those effects to your scene. So we've got a couple of layers of cinders there. And we've got some curves and levels adjustment layers. Adjustment layers for this kind of work are essential. In fact, what I'll do is I'll throw a link to my explanation of all 19 adjustment layers right now on a card somewhere up screen. It's definitely worth watching and it will explain every single one of all these adjustment layers. You can't see all of them, they're clipped off the screen, but there's 19 there and I explain all of them in a video. It's definitely worth watching if you're into this kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go on. Got a gradient fill. So you can see we've got some police there. You can see I'm starting to build the scene. We've got the crate, the loot crate that she is sat on, our subject. And that is the scene. So it doesn't look great at this stage. It's just really, really rough. And if I switch on the subject next, you can see, boom, she appears. And I can expand this down. We've got some blood on there. Kind of very sinister, blood around the mouth. We didn't use that in the end, so we'll turn that off. I think eyes, what did I do to her eyes? Oh, there we go. Just changing the eye color a little bit. Gone for a bit more kind of an amber color. And if I zoom back out, you can see we've got some curves and color balance adjustment layers. So you can see the difference that color balance has in particular. Really that makes a huge difference in blending the subject with the purples and the blue hues in the scene. And the curves really just kind of darken the darker areas and just add a little bit of contrast. So that's cool. Items, we can expand this down. We've got a lot of things in here. This is pretty cool. I'm quite pleased with some of these. So we've got down here, hopefully you can see this, we have a pistol that I've added to her hand. We also have the cyborg hand itself, which didn't exist before. So she's got a new prosthetic arm. And then I've added property of CDPR01. So the company developing this game that's coming out is CD Projekt Red. So it's just a nice little nod there. I think the neon glows kind of added all of these, yep. So these are just new layers, a soft feathered brush, a bright color like blue in this instance, and just brushing that in. In fact, wow, this goes into quite a lot of detail. Oh wow, okay, so the prosthetic was actually white. I thought, I don't want white, I want black. So using color balance to kind of introduce some of that kind of purpley blue hue. Hue and saturation, I think what that did, desaturate it a bit, and then levels to literally flip the colors around and make it like pretty much black, like a really dark color. So levels, incredibly useful for doing that kind of thing. And then there's the hand itself. And then just I redrew a little bit of the arm there. I think that is probably just really lazy brush tool work. Something else we've got an earring. So this is something I created in Illustrator. So I created this as a two-dimensional object in Illustrator and then went to Effect, down to 3D, Extrude and Bevel, I think. I'm doing this from memory. And then I just made that earring have like a 3D effect. It's meant to be like a V. Kind of the main character in the game is called V, so I made that custom earring and adjusted the lighting so it matched the scene that I was going to add the earring in. So I knew where the earring was going to go and I just created it, made it 3D and rotated it in Illustrator so I could kind of get the right angle. Hand lipstick. So we go down there, you can see lipstick marks on the hand for some reason. Hand tattoo, we can turn that off and on. I think that was just brush tooled in, like really, it's kind of like in a really faded tattoo way, so it's kind of like broken up. What else have we got? Oh, the neck. So believe it or not, she did have a human neck. And we've kind of replaced that with some sort of part of machinery, so it's like a cyborg neck. I think neck metal, yeah, so a couple of folders there that just make it feel a bit more metallic. She's got some kind of headset, probably like Bluetooth 10 or something. There we go, we've got the lollipop. So she's got a lollipop stick in her mouth because she does not care what you think. Look at that face, she does not care what you think. She's pretty badass. And we've got the lolly down here as well. So this was just a picture of a lolly. And if I expand this out, you can see that I went in here Did have a skull on it at one point, but I thought, it's a little bit too far. Added a highlight here with the brush tool and just painted in some shadows there and added a bit of tape. Color adjustments. So you can see this is all quite in depth. So it's very much about building your scene kind of one piece at a time. Nails color. I think I changed the color of the nails then. So this is quite cool because it's an adjustment layer. I can go through and just change it however I like. So the way I like to layer all this up is very organized, so I can go through and make changes if I need to. And things like adjustment layers, just make it super easy. So I've got another one here for skin color. So hey, we've got an avatar. We could go full on blue. There we go, a little bit Guardians of the Galaxy there. So you can fully change all of this and get super creative. We'll just undo that. We'll put that back. Anything else? Okay, so that was color adjustments to the subject. And if I go back in here, actually, I think I've got the main subject, which is a smart object. So again, if I double click this, I've got some other stuff in here. So this is the original image. This was the original image. I saw this image and thought, do you know what? This is exactly the subject I want for my shot. The leg pose is a bit weird, but I kind of saw this and thought she's going to be sat on top of something. So we'll crop off at the legs so you can't really see the strange position she sat in, but everything else from just like the badass look on her face to the jacket to the hair, it just kind of felt right. So that's the original image, and I think I cut her out with a bunch of tools. I've got some Photoshop how to cut stuff out tutorials, so I cut her out onto a transparent background as best I could. And for some reason I added eyeshadow in here as well. And I could, if I wanted to, add loads of makeup effects and things in here, change the eye color, lip color. I could do all of that in here, and I probably would do actually in hindsight, because what it means is I can do a lot of work on the character, have hundreds of layers in here, and those hundreds of layers will be contained within this one single smart object. So rather than have like hundreds of layers in my main document, it condenses them into one smart object that you can just go into, and it just helps keep things tidier, storing layers within smart objects. So that's pretty much the subject. So if we just go back up, you can see there's so many subfolders and everything. If you don't name your layers in your folders, you'll just struggle to find anything in something like this. So there's a subject. We can turn her on off like this. And post effects 1. Now, this is the way that I like to structure my composites. There's always like a hero or a heroine. They're like the feature kind of the piece. There's a scene, a subject, and then I usually create post effects. And this has the most dramatic effect on the scene. Because you might look at this at the moment and go, it looks fine, okay? Quite punchy. But when I turn this on, watch what happens. You can see it makes such a massive difference. And this is mostly made up of adjustment layers. And for things like this, any kind of, these effects are things that will be at the top of the layers panel, usually at the top. And there will be things like weather effects, rain, snow, fire, lighting, all that kind of stuff that isn't specific to the scene or the subject. So it's stuff that's going to affect everything under it. You can see in this file, I've got 2 post effects folders. So one that affects the subject and the scene. I've then got a bunch of scene decorations and things in the scene that I'll show you in a moment. And then I've got a post effects folder on top of that, a second one, which I don't normally do, but I've done it here to then affect all the scene decorations as well. So if I go into this, you can see we've got lots and lots of different adjustment layers. That's why I said it's so important. And you can see as I turn these on, so many subtle changes, but when you add all of these together, it creates a much more effective end result. So it really is just one step at a time building your scene. Things like post effects, normally I do at the end. I like to build the scene first out, like I said, really, really rough, get everything in there, the characters, the scene, get it all right. Then working out lighting and building that out, adding these effects and these adjustment layers is like, it's like the icing on a cake, okay? You make sure the cake is like fantastic, you've not like whisked it too much and it tastes great, then you can kind of add the icing, decorate it and all that stuff. So that's my my terrible analogy. So there we go, that's post effects 1. Scene decorations, this is quite cool. So I turn this on and there's lots and lots of things. This is like a stuff folder, so things to just enhance the scene. So we've got some like fairy lights here, we've got an open sign, we've got some more of those lights there, similar to on her hand, that's just like brush tool. We've got some more lighting effects. Again, lighting, as you saw with some of the other cinder effects and particle effects, if you've got like a lighting or a lens flare on a black background, just change that blending mode to light on your screen and it will just remove the black, remove the background, and then you'll keep the light. So it's a really easy way, you can see here on the drone as well, to just add lighting effects to everything. We've got one over here, I think this is like the Banana Club or something. And then what I did was go to edit, transform, and I think it was warp. And I used warp to kind of change the perspective of this so it all kind of matched. And we've got some 3D objects here that I got online and then modified and adjusted and warped and all sorts of stuff here. Went in, kind of made the L removed so that it looks like the sign isn't working, I think. We've got an open sign here. As I say, fairy lights. Added like a laser to the SWAT team. Added a security camera, that wasn't there before. And then added the light on the security camera. So that's just like, get a pink, get the color pink, brush tool, new layer. Just really, really easy. But then it's just about adjusting the levels and everything on all of these different scene decorations to match the image. So the camera wouldn't have been this color. In fact, I can try and show you what color the camera was. If I can find it, security camera. Let's have a look, take it back to the basic camera. It was white, it's a white camera. It clearly does not match the scene. The lighting doesn't match the scene. Color balance, again, purpley blue hue. Hue and saturation just strips out some of the color. And then the levels one, the most important one, that just makes it fit the scene. And then we've got the glow, and then the little dot, and there we go. So when you break it down and understand the different adjustment layers, and you know how to use each one, it becomes a lot easier to think about what you want to create and then know how to go about creating it. It just takes practice and becoming more familiar with the tools in Photoshop. Because I'm sure you could come up with like an amazing idea in your mind, and it's just thinking like, okay, which tool do I need to use to create this effect? And when I'm creating some of these, even now, like, you know, I've been using Photoshop for like over 15 years and I'm still sometimes a bit stuck on like, okay, what's the best way to create this effect? And it's sometimes just a bit of trial and error, but just practice and you'll get there, I promise. So that's the camera. And in fact, actually, with composites, you're usually, you know, by the definition, you are taking loads of images that are separate images, have all been photographed separately, all have different types of lighting, and you're just combining them together. So being able to modify things like color, lighting, shadows, highlights, midtones, all that stuff with adjustment layers is kind of essential to make all of those images, those things, hang together as if they're all, you know, shot within the same image, if that makes sense. So, lots of bits and pieces there. Some of them weren't used, some were. What did I do here? Oh yeah, went crazy on the zip. Tried to give her the same neon treatment as this. That took so freaking long to add blue to all those zips, and I looked at it and thought, I don't really like it. But you let me know down below, if you got this far in the video, do you like the blue zips or do you not? Let me know. I decided in the end to keep it because I'd spent so long doing it, but I switched it off from the final thing. So those are scene decorations. And then what have we got? Post effects 2. Yeah, just a few more different adjustment layers. Not very many here, just like a big kind of pink fade. Oh, really subtle. Added a little bit of noise to the image just so it's got like a little bit of grain. So a screen blending mode, 12%, really subtle. Color lookup. Let's double click on this adjustment layer. It's locked, so we'll unlock that. We'll just see what it was. Foggy night, okay. 20%, so we could crank this up. It looks a bit over the top, I think. So it's just really, really subtle. But yeah, usually, as I say, I have one like effects folder, and it's the top of everything, the top of the food chain. In this composite, for example, I seem to have two. I don't know why exactly, but there we go. There's a look at my Cyberpunk 2077 composite piece created in Photoshop. I hope this was helpful. I've had a ton of people ask me for a while now to do a video on something like this. It's quite tricky because these take so long to create, and I kind of take regular breaks. I don't sit there for 12 hours and just create the entire thing. There's a lot of kind of back and forth, and I go to bed, I wake up, I rest, and I see it completely differently in the morning and think, okay, I'm gonna take this in a different direction. So it's never a straight line, it's more like this. But hopefully this kind of analysis breakdown showing you my structure and explaining how I work was helpful. It's a lot of me talking. I'm kind of sick of the sound of my own voice now, but you know, hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know, what do you think? Was this helpful? Have you got any questions about how I create this kind of artwork? Just, you know, any questions or comments, drop those down below. But as always, like this video,